Welcome to Intellectual Conversations Made Easy, Volume 1, written by Cha Sering. In this book, we explore history, economics, politics, and ethics, four foundational pillars shaping the human experience. Let us embark on a journey to understand the world in a broader, yet approachable way. Part 1 introduces history by the flow of time. The beginning of civilization, the ancient era, and theocracy. Around 10,000 years ago, humanity transitioned from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to a sedentary one through the agricultural revolution. This shift led to surplus production, which in turn necessitated the development of governance structures. For example, in the Mesopotamian civilization, the Sumerians developed cuneiform writing, which was used to record surplus production and collect taxes. Moreover, the ruling classes justified their authority by leveraging religion. In Egypt, pharaohs were regarded as sons of gods, and their divine status was symbolized by monumental structures like the pyramids. The author explains that these early civilizations enabled the organization of human societies, forming the foundational structures of politics and economics. The Middle Ages, the era of feudalism and religion. The Middle Ages, often called the Age of Faith, saw religion dominating every aspect of life. In Western Europe, the Roman Catholic Church acted as a spiritual leader while also wielding political and economic power. For instance, the Walk to Cannae incident between Pope Gregory VII and Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV highlighted the Church's dominance over secular rulers. In the East, Confucianism became the guiding principle for maintaining social order. Particularly during the Tang and Song dynasties in China, the imperial examination system selected bureaucrats based on Confucian knowledge and virtues. This period saw a rigid class hierarchy and political stagnation, yet also witnessed significant cultural and philosophical developments, such as Neo-Confucianism in the East and scholasticism in the West. The advent of modernity, revolution, and transformation. Modernity began with a resurgence of human-centered thinking and advancements in science and technology. The Renaissance revived ancient Greek and Roman culture, emphasizing human creativity and value. For example, Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper reflects the Renaissance's focus on human emotions and reality. The Reformation started with Martin Luther's publication of the 95 Theses, criticizing the corruption of the medieval church and advocating for a personal connection with God. This movement spread Protestantism across Europe, challenging the Catholic Church's authority. The Industrial Revolution was a decisive turning point in modern history. The invention of the steam engine overcame the limits of human labor, and the development of railways and factories exponentially increased productivity and efficiency. At the same time, the French Revolution, led by Enlightenment ideals, championed human liberty and equality. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen legally codified these ideals. The author highlights that these events were not merely progressions, but revolutionary challenges to achieve a better life. Part 1 of the book explores the progression of human history through three key eras. In ancient times, the agricultural revolution led to the rise of civilizations like Mesopotamia and Egypt, where governance, religion, and structured economies emerged. The Middle Ages were dominated by religion, with the Catholic Church and Confucianism shaping societal order in the West and East. Modernity brought revolutionary changes through the Renaissance, Reformation, Industrial Revolution, and French Revolution, highlighting humanity's pursuit of creativity, equality, and progress. Part 2 introduces economics, the system of capitalism and communism. The rise and characteristics of capitalism. Capitalism began to flourish in the 18th century, propelled by the Industrial Revolution. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith introduced the concept of the invisible hand, emphasizing how market forces naturally regulate themselves. For example, post-industrial revolution Britain saw rapid growth in industrial production under a capitalist system. However, capitalism has notable flaws. The Great Depression of 1929 demonstrated the failure of market self-regulation. Overproduction and a drop in consumer demand led to a global economic crisis, resulting in widespread poverty and unemployment. The emergence and ideals of communism. Communism arose as an alternative to address the inequalities of capitalism. Rooted in the theories of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, it argued that class struggle was the driving force of history. In the Communist Manifesto, they advocated for a proletarian revolution to achieve a classless, equal society. The Russian Revolution of 1917 was an attempt to realize these ideals. However, under Stalin's leadership, The Soviet Union's collectivization policies resulted in mass famine, demonstrating the limitations of communist systems. The conflict between capitalism and communism. The Cold War symbolized the ideological clash between capitalism and communism. The United States championed freedom and market economies, while the Soviet Union promoted equality and planned economies. Events such as the Korean War and the Berlin Wall illustrate this global division. The author suggests that this conflict was not just about systems, but also a crossroads for humanity to choose its values. Part 2 of the book examines the development and impact of capitalism and communism. Capitalism, fueled by the Industrial Revolution, emphasized free markets and individual profit, but also led to inequalities and crises like the Great Depression. Communism, proposed by Marx and Engels, aimed to address these flaws by advocating for equality and collective ownership, but often resulted in authoritarian regimes, as seen in Stalin's Soviet Union. The Cold War symbolized the ideological clash between these systems, shaping global politics and forcing humanity to grapple with the values of freedom, equality, and economic structure. Part 3 introduces politics, which is the mechanics of power. The duality of democracy and dictatorship. First, democracy, balancing ideals and realities. Democracy, often viewed as the fairest political system, aims to reflect the will of the people through citizen participation. It originated in ancient Athens as a direct democracy, where citizens themselves debated and voted on policies. However, as societies grew more complex, direct democracy gave way to representative democracy, where elected officials act on behalf of the populace. While democracy promotes equality, freedom, and participation, it is not without flaws. The author highlights the gap between democratic ideals and their practical application. For instance, the 2000 U.S. presidential election, marked by the Florida recount controversy, revealed how democratic systems can falter. Issues like outdated voting technology, partisan interference, and legal ambiguity exposed vulnerabilities in even established democracies. Furthermore, modern democracies often struggle with voter apathy, political polarization, and the influence of money in elections, raising questions about their ability to truly represent the people. Another critique of democracy is the tyranny of the majority, where the rights of minority groups may be overlooked. This challenge underscores the need for robust checks and balances, independent judicial systems, and active civil society organizations to uphold democratic principles. Second, dictatorship, efficiency at a cost. Dictatorship, by contrast, centralizes power in the hands of a single leader or a small group, enabling swift decision-making and efficient implementation of policies. This concentration of authority can be advantageous in times of crisis, such as war or economic collapse, when decisive action is needed. For example, during World War II, the centralized leadership of authoritarian regimes like Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan allowed them to mobilize resources quickly, albeit often for destructive purposes. However, the efficiency of dictatorships comes at the cost of personal freedoms and human rights. The author examines North Korea under Kim Jong-il as a stark example of the consequences of authoritarian rule. While the regime maintained strict societal control and political stability, it did so by suppressing dissent, curbing free speech, and controlling every aspect of citizens' lives. Propaganda, surveillance, and punishment of political opponents ensured the regime's grip on power, but at the expense of individual liberty and societal innovation. Dictatorships also tend to foster corruption and abuse of power, as the lack of accountability allows leaders to prioritize personal or political gain over the public good. Moreover, without mechanisms for peaceful power transitions, these systems often face instability and violence when leadership is challenged or changes. Comparing and contrasting the two systems. The author draws a nuanced comparison between democracy and dictatorship, emphasizing their respective strengths and weaknesses. Democracy allows for inclusive decision-making and protects individual freedoms, but can be slow and inefficient due to bureaucratic hurdles and political compromise. Dictatorships, while efficient, often fail to respect basic human rights and suppress the diversity of thought that drives societal progress. The author advocates for the dispersion of power, active citizen participation, and institutional checks to mitigate the shortcomings of both systems. Democracies must work to close the gap between ideals and practice, while authoritarian regimes must recognize the value of accountability and pluralism. The ultimate goal is a political system that balances efficiency with freedom and respects the rights of all individuals. Part 3 of the book describes how democracy prioritizes citizen participation and equality, but struggles with inefficiencies, voter apathy, and systemic flaws. Dictatorships offer swift decision-making but often suppress freedoms and foster corruption. A healthy political system requires checks, balances, and active civic engagement to ensure fairness, accountability, and adaptability. Part 4 introduces ethics, which is the standards of right and wrong. First, the basics of ethical thought. The foundations of ethics. Ethics, as the study of moral principles, provides frameworks to evaluate human actions and their consequences. Two major ethical theories are deontology, championed by Immanuel Kant, and utilitarianism, developed by Jeremy Bentham. Kant argued that morality is grounded in universal duties and principles, regardless of outcomes. For example, telling the truth is inherently right, even if it leads to negative consequences. In contrast, utilitarianism evaluates actions based on their outcomes, asserting that the morally correct choice is the one that produces the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Ethical dilemmas and their practical applications. These theories often clash in real-world scenarios. A prominent example is the ethical dilemma faced by self-driving cars in accident scenarios. Imagine a situation where a car must choose between swerving to hit one pedestrian or staying its course and injuring three others. Kantian ethics would assert that every life has equal inherent dignity and worth, and thus no life should be sacrificed intentionally. Randomness or avoidance would be the morally correct action. On the other hand, utilitarianism would calculate the overall consequences and likely prioritize minimizing harm by saving the larger number of lives. Such dilemmas demonstrate how ethical theories can lead to starkly different decisions in complex situations. Ethical complexity in a globalized world. The author emphasizes that these philosophical debates are not merely theoretical but impact policy, law, and personal decision-making. For instance, issues like military interventions often invoke utilitarian reasoning, where leaders weigh potential casualties against broader strategic goals. Conversely, deontological principles influence human rights laws, asserting that certain rights, like freedom from torture, are inviolable regardless of circumstances. Second, ethical dilemmas in modern society. Technological advancements and ethical challenges. The rapid development of technology has created new and unprecedented ethical challenges. CRISPR gene editing technology, for instance, holds a potential to cure genetic diseases such as Huntington's disease or certain types of cancer. While this is a remarkable breakthrough, it also raises concerns about creating designer babies, where genetic traits like intelligence or appearance might be selectively modified. Such practices could exacerbate social inequalities, as only the wealthy may afford access to such technologies, leading to a biologically advantaged elite class. Artificial intelligence, AI, presents another ethical frontier. Questions about bias in algorithms, job displacement due to automation, and the potential misuse of AI for surveillance or warfare all require careful ethical consideration. For example, autonomous drones used in military operations blur the lines of accountability and morality, as decisions to take lives are delegated to machines. Environmental ethics and sustainability. The author highlights the ethical dimensions of environmental issues, urging a reevaluation of consumption patterns and their impact on the planet. Climate change is not just a scientific problem but a moral one, involving questions of intergenerational justice. Do current generations have the right to exploit resources at the expense of future generations? Similarly, global inequality is evident in environmental debates, as wealthier nations contribute the most to pollution but poorer nations bear the brunt of its consequences. For instance, the Pacific Island nations facing rising sea levels due to global warming often lack the resources to adapt or mitigate its effects, raising ethical questions about the responsibility of industrialized countries to aid them. Ethical approaches, such as applying Kantian principles, would argue that wealthier nations have a duty to act based on universal moral obligations, while utilitarianism would emphasize creating policies that benefit the largest number of people globally. Medical and public health ethics. Medical ethics has also grown more complex in modern society. Debates over vaccine mandates, for example, balance individual autonomy against the collective good. Utilitarian reasoning often supports mandates, arguing that widespread vaccination minimizes harm and saves lives. However, deontological perspectives may defend personal choice and bodily autonomy, even if it leads to adverse societal outcomes. These conflicts highlight the difficulty of navigating ethical questions in public health. The author underscores that ethical frameworks are not about prescribing right answers, but about providing tools to critically assess dilemmas. Ethical thinking helps individuals and societies navigate competing values, prioritize justice, and evaluate the consequences of their actions. However, the author warns that in an age of rapid technological and societal change, ethical considerations are often sidelined in favor of efficiency or profit. The book advocates for fostering ethical literacy among individuals and policymakers alike. By understanding and applying ethical principles, societies can better address the challenges of inequality, technology, environmental sustainability, and human rights in an interconnected world. Part 4 of the book explores ethics, providing frameworks to evaluate human actions, with Kantian deontology focusing on universal duties and utilitarianism emphasizing outcomes. Modern technology, such as CRISPR and AI, raises unprecedented ethical challenges, including issues of inequality and accountability. Environmental ethics calls for balancing current needs with the rights of future generations, as well as addressing global inequalities and climate impact. Ethical thinking is vital for navigating the complexities of modern public health, technology, and global responsibility. Finalizing, intellectual conversations made easy. This book invites readers to connect through four pillars of history, economics, politics, and ethics. The author guides readers toward a holistic understanding of the world. This book is not merely a repository of knowledge, but a tool to help readers think critically, comprehend the structures of society, and shape the direction of their lives. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to leave your comment or anything you would like to suggest or discuss. We will see you again with the next book. Appreciate your subscription and like. Thank you.